Thank you for all joining us here this morning. I just thought it was really, really important to talk a little bit about the just very soon to be concluded legislative session. I first wanted to start by thanking Senate President Kochi and Speaker Suki for their support. I did want to give a shout out to Chairs Tokuda for their hard work on the state budget. The majority leaders, Psyche and English, for their help and support in coordinating all of the activities. This was a true collaboration, a team effort on all fronts. We were successful in moving forward on many critical issues that have long standing been stuck in our community, and we have as a team moved them forward. I'm so pleased that many of the initiatives highlighted in the State of the State were successful and moved forward. And if I was giving this session a grade, and I know you reporters like to focus on that, if I was giving this session a grade, I'd give it a solid B. There were so many issues that have festered in our community for such a long time that we were successful in moving forward. Cooling our schools is my highest priority, and I'm glad that the legislature agreed. We have passed an emergency appropriation that allows us to move forward to cool schools in a most effective way. It means air conditioning, heat abatement, many other efficiency measures that will allow our schools and our children to be in a much better learning environment moving forward. This is a giant step forward. And I'm just glad that the legislature was willing to work with us to find a way to fund this priority. Homelessness has been a big challenge in our community, and this session we are moving forward. I wanted to thank the legislature for providing even more funds than we had initially requested, $12 million. More importantly, they demonstrated a commitment to trust us in how we choose to spend that, and we definitely will be working with the legislature as we move forward to align our priorities with the budget. We'll be developing a plan. We are focused on a systemic, evidence-based approach to solving the challenges of homelessness. As I've said many times, there are no quick fixes. We will be focused on the 3 levers of change that will allow us to take action on homelessness. That really is about providing affordable, permanent housing. It's about health and human services to support these individuals. And then just as importantly, about public safety, about ensuring that our public spaces can remain open to the public for everyone to enjoy, at the same time that we encourage those who are homeless to move out of that condition. No lever by itself can be successful. It really is about a coordinated, comprehensive, evidence-based program that moves people off the streets and into permanent supportive housing. And I'm so grateful that we were able to get substantial support from the legislature in affordable housing. Last year, we appropriated $80 million. This year, we're providing another $75 million to move forward on affordable housing. We are adding funds to the Rental Assistance Housing Trust Fund. We are seeking to change the dwelling unit revolving fund to address the lack of infrastructure in our communities. We've appropriated $25 million to the dwelling unit revolving fund, and the legislature agreed to allow us to broaden the use of funds so we can use the DERF fund to make investments in infrastructure that's important to state projects to allow us to move forward. We we believe that this will allow state projects to move forward, especially in the Kalihi and other areas. We work with the legislature to improve the effectiveness of the low-income housing tax credit. And I just wanted to reiterate that this was a joint venture with those in the private sector. We started the session talking about those things that would make a difference in speeding affordable housing, in getting more permanent housing for our residents. The enhancements in the tax credits add value to developers that allows them to make more affordable housing available. We also got approval to look and enhance transit-oriented development. The legislature agreed and is providing funds that allows us to move forward with a transit-oriented development program. We are excited about that opportunity. We will be looking at those state parcels along the transit route and deciding what is in the best interest of our communities. I am so grateful to the legislature that they agreed that we should move Kalihi into the 21st century. Legislature is providing us $5 million in planning funds to begin to look at the alternatives for OCCC in Kalihi and elsewhere in Halawa. We will be able to move this initiative forward, engage the community, talk about what a 21st century Kalihi really should look like, what opportunities there are for evaluating existing state uses in the Kalihi area, and more importantly, engaging the community and other stakeholders in how best to re-envision Kalihi for the 21st century. This session has really been a great one for healthcare. You know, we have long talked about the need for a new forensic mental health facility in our community. And I wanted to thank the legislature for appropriating the $160 million that we need to move forward on a long overdue new patient facility that provides a better environment for our patients, but just as importantly, a better environment for our employees. It truly allows us to provide better services to our communities. We also moved forward with funding the Maui Region hospitals. As you are aware, we executed the lease, which is the final document. The transfer agreement was executed earlier this year. And this really does allow us to move forward in managing the Maui facilities in a much better way. And then finally, I just wanted to thank the legislature for their support in the Department of Health's response to fight against vector-borne diseases. As you know, I did declare an emergency to respond to mosquito-borne vector diseases. Legislature provided 20 positions to allow us to reinforce and reinvest in that critical network that allows us to ensure the health and safety of our communities when it comes to vector-borne diseases. You know, the budget reflects how we can do a better job of managing our state resources. We are committed to shoring up the financial condition of the state. I appreciate the legislature's overwhelming support for the rainy day fund, appropriating $150 million to restoring that baseline savings account that will allow us to weather the next economic downturn. And they also agreed to fund or increase the funding for other post-employment benefits, the unfunded liability of the health fund. That reflects $250 million investment in our kids' future, relieving the burden of that entitled responsibility that we have for providing services for those retirees who choose public service. I just wanted to thank the cabinet members and just say a little bit about the challenges we all know and are focused during the legislative session on the many initiatives that we put forward here this session. But there's a state to run at the same time. I am so proud of the cabinet, the deputies, and most importantly, the state public servants who choose public service over higher paying, potentially private sector jobs. They have kept the state moving forward even while participating fully in the legislative process. And just to highlight a couple of things, we completed the transition or are completing the transition to a new management paradigm in the Maui Health Systems facilities on Maui. We are moving forward with medical marijuana and implementing that rules and selection process. We have kept on schedule, actually ahead of schedule, with tax modernization. And if you think about it, this time last year, everyone was complaining about the delays in processing of income tax refunds, and there has been no stories about the delays that have resulted. And we still are challenging and looking for fraud and making sure that we collect the taxes that are owed. We are moving forward with an RFP for time and attendance as we continue to make strategic investments in our IT infrastructure. We just completed the bond sale, the most successful, lowest cost bond issuance in the history of the state. And at the same time, we fixed Wilson Tunnel and Kamehameha Highway, and we made a milestone on our fight against dengue fever. So I just wanted to thank the cabinet members. I wanted to thank the legislature for their commitment and teamwork. Finally, it truly is a collaboration. It is about hard work of the cabinet and legislature working as true partners in moving Hawaii forward. As I said, we've taken on so many issues that have been ignored for such a long time. I started by giving a grade, and I continue to believe that this was a resounding B. We took care of our kids in the schools. We made great progress in making housing affordable. We made major advances in healthcare and mental health. We have the means to take care of those who are homeless. We made investments in our future to ensure that our children are not saddled with the obligations of the past. My administration will continue to work collaboratively with the legislature as a team to move forward on those most challenging issues that our community face. We do know that we owe it to the people of Hawaii to produce a better, more efficient, and effective government for all the people. And so with that, I'll be open to any questions.
So Governor, you gave a grade of B. That puts you at third base. What would send you home?
Well, I'm kind of a tough grader, so I apologize for the cabinet. We didn't have a chance to talk about it. But, I've always believed that there's room for improvement. And it is about, I think we had a tremendous success. But, like I said, I always believe we can do better.
In what way? In what area?
I think, you'll see we didn't get every single request that we asked it for. There were some initiatives that we'll be back next year for.
What didn't pass this session that you're disappointed about, Governor?
I don't think there's any one thing that that I would say we're disappointed with. There are a couple of things that we still have work to do. The Health Connector and finalizing making a home for that in state government is one. I think overall, we didn't get all the funds that we asked for, and so we will continue to be back.
Would you like to go for homelessness? Can you talk a little bit about why it was important to get that this year, and also is this the largest amount that the state has ever given to homelessness? I know it is in the last decade.
I do know that it has been an improvement, and I think it's two things that are important, you know. I didn't want to just ask for more money for the sake of asking for more money. We wanted to be focused and clear that we would be spending funds in those areas that would have the greatest impact. And so, yes, I believe this is amongst the highest appropriation for homelessness. More importantly, we do have a plan. We are data focused. We will be applying across the three levers of change that are so fundamentally important. Permanent affordable housing, health and human services that support the homeless. And then the third is public safety, assuring that we have the means to keep public spaces public.
Governor, how important is it that the administration was not able to get the tax increase for highway funds? Is that going to?
We will be back. We are thankful that the legislature provided $37 million in general funds to the highway tax. So, you know, it's a redeposit or recommitment to funds. I know the legislature had expressed the concern that in the past, funds were diverted. So I am glad that we could restore some of that. I think the 37 million will give us additional resources that allows us to move forward on very critical projects. And, you know, and I take it as a challenge to prove to the legislature that if given additional funds, we will definitely deliver better transportation services for our community.
Do you intend to then ask again next year for the tax increase, the fuel tax increase?
Absolutely. The need for resources is significant. The requirements far exceed the revenues that we currently have. Or we wouldn't have asked them for the increase in the first place.
Outside of your lane, Governor, what about the UH Cancer Center?
You know, I am committed to maintaining the National Cancer Institute designation because I believe that it is really important to our community. Our community deserves the best cancer care that we can provide. The Cancer Center is critical to participation in clinical trials that allows us access to new treatments and cutting edge medications that we would not have otherwise. So I'm committed to being back. You know, I believe that we need to have a nationally designated cancer center for our people.
But that $13 million deficit that they have, I mean, that's pretty daunting.
It is, but I don't think it's impossible. And I think fundamentally, I think it's important for our community to have such a facility here in Hawaii.
Governor, you had talked about the need to improve, renovate, or possibly even move OCCC as a result of overcrowding.
Yes.
There are no bills that would finance the building of any new jail or prison facilities, but there is a bill that will be heading to your desk that will allow for the release of those who've either been accused or convicted of misdemeanors. Do you intend to sign that as a potential solution to overcrowding?
Well, let me just make a correction. The legislature provided significant funds as requested to add modules and capacities to the jails on all islands. So there are funds available to add space on Kauai, Maui, the Big Island, and Oahu Correctional Facility because we do know that they are overcrowded. So that is part of that. You know, in terms of the bills, we will be going through the standard review. So I think it's premature to really comment on any decision on any measure that is moving toward me. We'll be working with the attorney generals and all of the cabinet to evaluate the bills passed by the legislature and then making appropriate decisions.
Governor, can you be more specific as to any project or issue that was underfunded that disappointed you?
Well, you know, I think if you just look at affordable housing, for example, the need and demand is much bigger than we could ever resolve in a session. So I mean, I think that we continue to work with the legislature to make choices about how to spend taxpayer dollars. You know, and I feel very good about this session. You know, we've made significant investments that will allow us to move affordable housing forward. And more, just as importantly, you know, the restructuring of the low income tax credit is really important to developers because it allows them to leverage the tax credit for more capital. And then finally, the changes to the dwelling unit revolving fund really allows us to have the possibility of the state participating in critical infrastructure development that is fundamentally important to moving projects forward.
Governor, there's a situation out in Micronesia with emergency declaration with the drought. And I know the government of Guam is bracing for an influx of thousands of more people possibly from Micronesia. What are we doing here looking at that situation?
In terms of, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it's just that, you know, we already have a large number of the Micronesian community living here, and there may be more.
You know, we continue to work with the migrants from Micronesia. We know that it's important that we have, during the interim, I've had outreach to several of the nations to talk about how we can better prepare before people immigrate to Hawaii. At the same time, we're looking at different ways that we can seek more funding from the Congress to meet and work on the impact. At the same time, we're looking at how we deliver services here in the state and looking for better ways, best practices of how we can provide better services.
Governor, on the homelessness funding, should we expect to see more sweeps on state land and under highways with the funding that you have requested? And why is that an important part of the solution?
Part of our request did deal with public safety, and it's a couple of things. We do know that we need to keep public spaces public, and so we need the capacity to challenge people who are in areas that they shouldn't be. The primary difference is that we are also focused on assuring that as we do enforcement, we have space in a shelter for everyone who is there. And so we will continue to encourage the homeless as we enforce our laws to move into a better environment, which a shelter can provide. And most importantly, we are looking at the continuum of care and looking to ensure that each of those components are working efficiently, moving people from off the street into a shelter, into a rapid rehousing situation, and fundamentally into permanent housing, which is the objective.
Can you speak then, Governor, to the failure of Senate Bill 2816, which would have criminalized trespassing on state lands?
You know, we will again be back. We were looking at ways that we can strengthen our ability to enforce the laws. And so, you know, we'll be back next year.
There had been some discussion that potentially that would have also been used to prevent protesters on Mauna Kea should TMT start up again. Can you address that?
That bill was to ensure that we can enforce the laws on all state lands. And obviously Mauna Kea is state land. So yes, it would allow us to enforce at Mauna Kea. It would allow us to enforce under the freeways. It would allow us to enforce on the medians. It would allow us to enforce in state land across the state.
On the issue of TMT, are you concerned at all that BLNR will get delayed or caught up in challenges as a result of some of the questions raised about Ricky Mayamano? Would it be best for them to just pick another contested case hearings officer?
I don't really know. I do know that the department is moving forward in the best way that we can. I've committed to make sure that the department has the resources it needs to provide a fair and balanced hearing process to move that case forward toward a decision.
So Governor, you had $700 million carryover surplus, $170 million Medicaid reimbursements, $30 million in savings. I mean, you were in the money, so you earned a grade of B, but what happens if the revenues go down?
You know, we certainly expect, if you speak with the economists, we are now into the 7th year of expansion, and all of the economists say that it can't go on forever. So, you know, we are preparing. That's why we've insisted on making investments in the rainy day fund in preparation. That's why we've invested funds into paying down the unfunded liability because of two things. One, we do know that when we pre-fund, it does reduce the requirements going forward. And 100 million invested today will double in 10 years and double again in another 10 years. So we do know it does reduce the long-term cost of government. And so we will continue as a priority to make investments that improve our financial condition.
Governor, lawmakers for the first time in years took up the issue of mandating unannounced inspections for long-term care facilities during relicensing, an issue the administration supported. In the end, it ended up not passing, but not starting until 2019. I was interested in your thoughts on delaying it rather than starting now.
Well, you know, I think being that I was a legislator, I do understand and appreciate they're allowing us, you know, passing a law doesn't instantaneously respond to any issue. There are requirements, you know, we have to set up data systems, information systems. We need to build the capacity to do inspections. We need to have the infrastructure in place to allow us to share the reports with everyone. So we appreciate and we will be working to get those inspections as soon as possible.
Governor, there was a lot of attention on the Airbnb bill collection that passed, but there's a lot of concern about what's happening and whether we should have gotten more teeth into the bill to make sure that you know, we aren't overrun with tourists in areas where we don't want tourist activity. You know, and HTA just did a big deal about how we have to be nice to tourists, but I mean, there's obviously some friction there that we need to address at some point.
You know, technology is changing our community every single day. You know, and the challenge with Airbnb is similar to the challenges we see in taxi service and other areas in our communities. You know, the bill in and of itself didn't change that opportunity. You know, the notion that people can directly provide rentals to visitors exists today, and that measure has nothing to do with changing those opportunities. So I think it's inherent in all of us to really understand that the world is changing and it's changing faster and faster. We need to have an ability to have government that's flexible and responsive and able to provide it, the needed changes. You know, we supported that measure because we recognize that this is a new way for visitors to get access to accommodations, and that this proposal allowed us to do a better job at collecting taxes already owed.
But would you have liked to have seen some teeth in there? I mean, DLNR is struggling with, you know, illegal camping and glamping and other things like that.
You know, I think that those challenges exist regardless of what happened with the bill. So, you know, we continue to improve the infrastructure in state government. We continue to make requests to the legislature for the staffing that we need to execute the executive authority. You know, we made a request this year for additional enforcement within DLNR. We do know that it's a big challenge. You know, we've been going to other kinds of things to improve enforcement. Community-based enforcement, I think, is very important. Enforcement and management of the resource. And so, you know, we definitely are looking at how we can do a better job of delivering critical services to our community each and every day. The Airbnb bill allows us to be more efficient in collecting taxes already owed. You know, we all need to think about how we need to make improvements in many, many different facets of what we do as a state.
Governor, while many senators agree that tax compliance was important within that bill, they said that it would have been an opportunity, though, to better regulate what has turned into a real influx of illegal vacation rentals, which they compared to with the affordable housing measures that they passed as being akin to taking one step forward and two steps back. We know that illegal vacation rentals pull out of long-term rentals for local residents, and that has a huge impact on the availability of affordable housing. So do you think it's the state's prerogative or responsibility to better create regulations that ensure that that doesn't happen?
The regulation of visitor accommodations are really a county function. I would certainly encourage the county councils and the mayors to focus on how they can do a better job of regulating visitor accommodations. You know, our focus was on ensuring that they are paying taxes that they are already owed.
Governor, can you say any more about how your administration plans to spend the 12 million on homelessness programs? Is it safe to assume the 9 million you requested will be spent in the way you requested?
Certainly, I think we will be revisiting and looking at the most important areas that we need. As you may be aware, we had talked about the fact that we are revisiting all of the state contracts in delivering homeless services and trying to identify appropriate measures of effectiveness, as well as ensuring that the systems work, that we are moving people from homelessness to shelter, to rapid rehousing, to permanent housing, and making sure that each of those components are functioning effectively, developing contracts that allow us to monitor progress. So again, we'll be taking a look at the original request that we had of about 9 million is probably the way that the first 9 million will be spent. We'll be looking at which additional areas would have the most impact in making change.
Governor, you made mention of the administration's interest in transit-oriented development. What's your thinking now on the renewed debate over rail itself and whether or not it should go full 20 miles or perhaps stop or be modified at middle speed?
I'm a big supporter of transit systems. I do believe it's a quality of life issue, and having a good, efficient mass transit system significantly improves the quality of life in our community. We will challenge them into being cost effective and efficient in how they spend those dollars. But I do believe that we need to have a system as laid out. And I do know, and if you look at the history of transit systems across the country, virtually in every instance, they've been expanded once the initial system has gotten up and running. We have significant ridership in our bus program today. And obviously all of those would be transitioned to the transit system.
Governor, what are your thoughts about reducing the amount that the state holds from the excise tax that we collect for rail? I mean, if the costs are going to go up as we go into town, is it fair to have, either the real property tax go up or whatever they decide to do? I mean, can't the state reduce that 10%?
I think, we are willing to look at that challenge. I do think that, part of that is this whole tax modernization system and the investment that we are making in our tax system. Part of that is increased by the fact that we have to collect this tax on behalf of the counties. And so I think that there are lots of different components are willing to look at what the actual cost to the state is of collecting that tax and, perhaps in the future look at revisiting that.
Governor, Midweek Magazine characterized Senator Jill Tokuda and Representative Sylvia Luke as the sisters, and they never made reference to you or Marcus Oshiro as the brothers. So I mean, do they get a solid B from you, the finance chair?
I have enjoyed a good working relationship with Senator Tokuda and Representative Luke. I do appreciate that they have had an open door. We've had many discussions throughout the session about fiscal policy. And I think that we are aligned in many instances. So I do enjoy working with them. They've been very supportive. As you know, they were partners in our homelessness task force, and I asked them to participate, and that was an unusual request to make to the Finance and Ways and Means Chair, and I was thankful that they chose to participate. I think it made a difference. It made a difference in them understanding the challenges of homelessness, and I think it had a direct impact on their willingness to provide additional funds.
Governor, the legislature struggled again this year to pass any meaningful police reform measures, whether it's body cameras or minimum training standards board. I was curious if there were any bills you would have liked to have seen come across your desk.
I really haven't been looking at that area.
Any other questions? All set. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.